It began innocently. Too innocently for something this large. No breaking news headline, no sensational press conference. Only a few lines deep in a court document that most viewers would never even have seen, unless they were searching for it. A number of outlets following the ongoing legal battles of the Brown family report the court ordered several internal TLC production recordings pertaining to sister wives. For years, those recordings were sealed away, hidden from the public under confidentiality contracts and network privilege. But not anymore. The minute those tapes were opened up, all that fans believed about Kody Brown, Robyn, and the failure of the Brown family polygamous experiment began to come apart at the seams. The tale, as it is now unfolding, is less a reality show and more a legal thriller. Those close to the case say the tapes weren't simply old B-roll or backstage detritus. The tapes were said to hold unedited interviews, unaired fight scenes, and production notes that contradicted the highly choreographed image TLC had cultivated for over a decade. Fans who've been watching the family since season 1 will recall how frequently scenes seemed so polished, controlled. But on these tapes, the unvarnished reality emerged. The moments when producers supposedly pushed emotional showdowns, and the moments when Kody's anger toward his wives wasn't a television moment, but something far less rehearsed. And in one source's account, what was caught on those tapes was deeply uncomfortable to watch. This wasn't the first time it was doubted that the network was at the center of the Browns' downfall, but this time, the disparity was straightforward. The video was authentic, and the court directed its release. There is no clear reason what prompted the judge's ruling. Some attribute it to a broader court fight over contractual money owed. Others believe one of the wives, or their legal representatives, petitioned for the release to support a civil claim involving misrepresentation or emotional harm. Whatever the reason, the outcome was the same. A vault was opened, and what came out of that vault could permanently change how Sister Wives is remembered. Because buried in those tapes, according to early summaries, was a moment so raw, so revealing, that even TLC executives reportedly didn't want it to see daylight. We'll get to that in a moment. But before we can get to that, we have to return to where everything started. The behind, the scenes drama that created these tapes in the first place. By the time the cameras rolled on Sister Wives season 18, the family we got to know over a decade ago hardly existed anymore. Christine had departed. Janelle was finished. Mary was checked out. And Robyn. Robyn was still standing by Cody, but viewers could see the cracks widening in a hurry. In private, it was even worse. Production notes that have emerged on the recently unsealed TLC tapes revealed that crew members were not to intervene no matter how intense or personal a situation got. One of the ex-producers, whose name has been redacted in the court document, allegedly explained to investigators that by the last seasons, it wasn't a reality show anymore, it was damage control. What they filmed, however, was precisely what TLC did not want people to witness. Unedited footage of a family crashing, while the cameras continued to roll. The raw footage, now part of a civil complaint, is said to capture scenes that never made air. Moments when the emotional strain of the show became impossible to conceal. One clip described in legal summaries reportedly shows a heated argument between Cody and a producer about how much of the truth the audience could handle. Cody, according to that same report, demanded several emotional breakdowns be cut from the final episodes. "We're not filming this," he allegedly said. "Here is not what the family signed up for." But the tapes confirmed that they did videotape it, and they continued to videotape. The longer the series was on, the more financially dependent the Browns were upon it. The contracts directly correlated their pay to airtime. If the series ended, so did the paycheck. And by then, it wasn't so much about fame. It was survival. That reliance produced what one insider described as a quiet desperation, a desire to act family cohesion on camera, while the reality off camera unraveled, and the court intervenes. They were not released because TLC wanted them out. They were freed because someone had contested that the public had a right to know how far the network went to cover for Cody's image, and at what expense to everybody else. What followed transformed a bitter family rivalry into an all-out legal battle. When Christine's attorneys submitted a motion to unseal the unaired footage, they were not merely attempting to score a point, they were making a move. As for individuals familiar with the case, the argument was straightforward but compelling. The tapes revealed emotional manipulation and financial exploitation that had been kept hidden behind years of NDAs. Christine's attorneys argued that the tapes were key evidence that what occurred off camera wasn't so much the rosy family TLC had been peddling to audiences. TLC naturally pushed back hard. The network's lawyers warned releasing the tapes would breach privacy contracts and cause irreparable damage to the network's brand. They argued the tapes were the production company's property, not the Brown family's. But that argument began to fall apart when one of the judges allegedly posed a blunt question. If these tapes reveal nothing untoward, why are you so bent on having them sealed? That query lingered in the courtroom like a cloud. For decades, fans had wondered what the cameras hadn't captured. The off-camera moments that made the on-screen grins ring just a touch false, and as more was revealed, it seemed that those missing scenes weren't minor cuts. They were the sort of moments that might change everyone's perception of Kody Brown forever. According to Behind the Scenes reports, Cody and Robyn allegedly pressured TLC into keeping the tapes secret. Some sources say Robyn made personal calls to producers, pleading with them to postpone the release, but the law moved quicker than they had hoped. Once the court decided the tapes were relevant evidence, the seal was lifted. By then, even TLC executives realized they couldn't contain what was coming. Lawyers started drafting statements, PR flacks wrote replies, and within the family, panic ensued. Since the instant those tapes came out, the story was no longer theirs to control. The videos didn't merely present tension. They recorded betrayal, money conflicts, and instances where Cody's words didn't reconcile with his on-camera persona. What surprised everyone the most wasn't what he did. It was how nonchalantly he did it, like the cameras weren't even present. And that, people who viewed the tapes say, is where everything shifted. Among the recently released video, one clip instantly became the center of attention in the case. It wasn't long, only a matter of minutes, but as court sources put it, it exactly epitomized the difference between Cody's on-screen image and off-screen behavior. In the video, Cody is talking about family expenses with one of the wives. Behind the camera, the family seems to be living hand-to-mouth, frugal budgets, pinching pennies, and constant arguments over bills and assets. But what the covert footage uncovered was far different: hidden accounts in banks, under-the-table payments, and discussions about money being concealed from the wives. One of the former production assistants, who wished to remain anonymous, characterized the moment as jaw-dropping. The assistant explained that Cody spoke with a relaxed, almost carefree tone, as he explained the workings of having some money kept separate, money that he had described as his own personal earnings, but which many claimed should have been included as part of the shared assets of the family. The court allegedly stopped during playback, and some of those in attendance later characterized the mood as strained and quiet. The judge did not speak at once, but the look on their face, according to witnesses, told everyone in the room that this was serious proof of fiscal manipulation. Legal observers monitoring the case said that this was the sort of information that could break or make a decision. It wasn't simply testimony anymore. It was video evidence of the inconsistencies that had long been hinted at. Meanwhile, onlookers on the internet started speculating wildly about the video. Social media went into meltdown with screenshots, leaks, and speculation. Viewers were split. Some rallied to defend Cody, saying reality television tends to stage tension, while others interpreted this as clear evidence that the patriarch had been deceiving the whole viewership and his family for years. Also, the family dynamics appeared to change overnight after the clip emerged. Sources indicate Christine, Janelle, and Mary felt vindicated and furious. To them, it wasn't only about money at this point, it was about the truth coming out. The clandestine behavior behind years of so-called family harmony. Cody, however, allegedly became more and more combative. Friends who are close to him explain late night phone calls with producers and attorneys brainstorming how to limit the damage. But by the time the video became public, control had already slipped from his hands. The stakes weren't merely legal. They were financial, personal, and emotional. For the first time, the world could witness what the wives had long suspected, but could never demonstrate, and what TLC had documented, but never broadcasted. As soon as the secret TLC tapes became public, Christine didn't hesitate to share her reaction. In a quick release to the press, she called the tapes both shocking and validating. She said that for years she had felt there were things Cody was not telling her, mostly about money and how the family assets were being handled. Christine disclosed the viewing of the tapes was emotional and intense. She confessed that though she had braced herself for confrontation in court, nothing could have prepared her for seeing the behind-the-scenes moments recorded on tape. To her, it was evidence of what she had long believed. The public face of the family did not depict reality. Court insiders reported that Christine's lawyers had, on the spot, demanded a complete audit of all the tapes to see if there were more moments of significance. They claimed that these secret interactions were crucial proof in establishing the claims of financial abuse and dishonesty. Concurrently, social media reactions flooded in. Fans showed a mixture of anger, sympathy, and disbelief. Many messages noted the contrast between what the behind-the-scenes reality was and what TLC had aired. Memes and video compilations of Cody's controversial moments began circulating within hours, fueling speculation and debate. Christine's statement also hinted at the emotional toll on the family. She described the footage as a reminder of the complicated, sometimes painful dynamics that existed behind closed doors. While it confirmed some suspicions, it also made the family face harsh realities concerning their relationship and how Cody handled money as well as trust. Surprisingly, some of Cody's supporters contended that the footage was being taken out of context. They asserted that editing and selective framing could manipulate the reality of conversations. But legal experts pushed back, arguing that the court had established the tapes as authentic and they were therefore admissible and compelling evidence. At the end of the day, it was apparent that Christine's words were merely the start. Her response set the stage for the other wives, who were now in the process of preparing their own responses. Each conversation, each business decision, and each taped private interaction had the ability to change the course of the legal fight and public opinion. As the court continued to review the evidence, a new set of tapes emerged in the spotlight. These were confidential discussions between Cody and Robyn that had been recorded by TLC cameras but never broadcast. These were different from the money clip, as they exposed tactical talks about dictating family narratives and shaping public opinion. One especially revealing clip features Cody and Robyn laying out how to deal with fighting with the other wives. The tone was deliberative, nearly transactional, with statements that implied manipulation instead of teamwork. Robyn, who stood as the enabling persona on television so many times, was instructing Cody about which points to reveal to the cameras and what to keep secret altogether. Legal commentators were referring to this as proof that was game-changing. It wasn't merely clandestine money anymore. It indicated purpose and planning. The tapes implied that decisions concerning the family were being finalized behind closed doors, without the input of everybody involved, that could have far-reaching consequences for current lawsuits. Inside the courtroom, emotions ran high. Witnesses said there was a mixture of shock and disbelief, and even relief from Christine, Janelle, and Mary. Witnessing their suspicions confirmed on tape apparently brought them a sense of justice, even before the judge made any official decision. Meanwhile, web forums erupted with commentary. Fans analyzed the footage frame by frame, picking apart Robyn's tone, Cody's tone, and the subtle techniques the cameras used to get at expressions that contradicted what viewers had watched on television. Memes, reaction videos, and heated debate filled social media, and it was evident that the reach of the secret tapes went far beyond the courtroom. For Cody, the damage was instant. Consultants allegedly warned him that the tapes could irreparably harm his reputation and dilute his legal position. Friends who were close to the family had defined him as defensive and more withdrawn, with some even claiming that he started backing away from public appearances in order not to be scrutinized. The court wasn't finished yet, however. More tapes came to play, each exposing more layers of secretive behavior, and the narrative that the public believed they had known about the Brown family began to unravel completely. These weren't reality television moments anymore. They were evidence pieces that could transform the whole story. As the unseen TLC tapes rolled in the courtroom, the tension mounted. Every word, every hesitation, every furrowed brow shot across the footage seemed to reverberate in the room. Witnesses reported that the judge was clearly agitated, at times leaning forward in incredulity, taking notes, and sometimes shooting brief glares at the clerks. This wasn't routine court fodder. This was a reality television controversy crashing into legal responsibility. The most incendiary moments dealt with Kody's secret orders to Robyn. In one recording, he laid out a plan to frame some family conflicts as inherent to the situation and to leave out his own part in provoking them. The judge, according to insiders, stopped the playback a few times, obviously struggling with what it meant. "This is not mere mismanagement," one court watcher said afterward. "This is orchestrated manipulation on tape in real time." Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. Legal commentators opined that the tapes might amount to evidence of fraudulent misrepresentation, emotional duress, and breach of fiduciary duty depending on the court's reading of Kody's behavior. Social media broke out in comparisons, timelines, and hot arguments about whether reality television can ever be divorced from real-life accountability. Meanwhile, the wives observed for Christine, Janelle, and Mary. The secret recordings provided vindication. The years of being silenced, of work being downplayed, and of being sidelined both financially and emotionally were suddenly made a matter of undisputable record. No longer just hearsay or rumors, they were recorded facts, presented under oath to a court of law. Kody's attitude was said to have changed during the hearings. Witnesses said he had seemed restless and evasive, constantly muttering to his lawyers, and trying to put some parts of the footage into perspective or discredit others. His lawyers had advised him to keep quiet, telling him that the slightest explosion could undermine what was left of his credibility and bolster the accusations of a deliberate cover-up. The courtroom itself was an arena of anxiety. Each screening of the undercover footage had the public gallery gasping and the legal team murmuring. Reporters observed that the judge's demeanor, a blend of concentration, skepticism, and firm attention, signaled that this case had transcended routine family law into new territory, where reality television intersected with real-life consequences. By the end of the session, it was apparent. The secret TLC tapes were more than evidence. They were a turning point. They presented the very court case that was ongoing not so much as a money fight, but as a tale of control, manipulation, and betrayal, and placed Kody right in the middle of a tale he could no longer control or spin. While the under-the-table conversations brought strategy and control to the forefront, the court very quickly moved on to the financial tapes. Video recordings of Kody talking about the family's income and expenses with production team members. Contrary to what had been seen on television, these tapes showed a precise breakdown of how some money was being kept back from joint family accounts. Insiders told People that the tapes chronicled Kody instructing TLC production accountants to classify payments under cryptic names such as Talent Incentive Bonus and Executive Collaboration Fund. On television, Kody had come across as relaxed, near flippant, but in real life these funds were supposedly purposefully structured to shift money away from the wives and into Kody's hands, giving him sole control of the family finances. Christine's attorneys contended that this footage was the smoking gun. It implied that Kody not only knew about the money differences, but was actively controlling them, making a behind-the-scenes channel for himself while keeping up a front of family hardship. Viewers who saw teasers uploaded to the internet saw something more. Kody kept referencing individual episodes and plot points. Phrases like, "Make sure this budget fits what is on camera," indicated that reality television drama and fiscal manipulation were inseparable. What seemed to audiences like bickering about everyday costs was actually choreographed with care to preserve the patriarch's authority and maximize network income. The court also looked at timestamps and cross-checked wire transfers against what these tapes recorded happening. All the suspicious spending, from inexplicable high withdrawals to 11th, or special appearance pay, appeared to line up with particular instances where Kody had manipulated the storyline for the camera crews. Legal commentators said the evidence presented was sufficient to be interpreted as both economic fraud and violation of fiduciary duty, because the other wives were not privy to these withdrawals. Social media blew up. Excerpts from the tapes quickly became viral, with hashtags #KodyExposed and #Hidden TLC files trending within a matter of hours. Fans were outraged at the seeming betrayal and started demanding complete openness from TLC. Others contended that the reality show about the Brown family had kept as much behind it as it showed, producing an altogether different narrative from the one viewers had consumed for decades. Around behind the scenes, attorneys for Kody and Robyn allegedly frantically moved to downplay the damage, asserting these distributions were a common industry custom. They contended that, as the show's focal point, Kody deserved performance bonuses and discretionary allowances. But the burden of video proof of intentional cover-up and calculated maneuvering rendered this defense increasingly frail. The story was changing fast. What had begun as a conflict over claims of under-the-table payments was now a full-fledged revelation of systemized control and manipulation, not only questioning the Browns' finances, but also the morality of the show itself. As the court and the public turned attention to Kody, naturally it fell to Robyn. Throughout the off-camera TLC tapes, Robyn showed up in a number of significant moments, occasionally in explicit dialogue with Kody, and sometimes watching interactions with the production crew. These tapes brought about an inexorable question: was Robyn actually involved in the conspiracies, or merely walking through survival within family rank? In a very telling video clip, Robyn is observed sanctioning what looks like a reallocation of funds from the joint family account into a personal expense account. She speaks in a measured and calm tone, indicating familiarity with the procedure rather than astonishment. Critics complain that this amounted to complicity in financial malfeasance, possibly undermining her legal position. Legal analysts countered, however, that context is everything. A number of scenes featured Robyn looking uneasy and uncertain, quietly objecting to Kody's actions or recommending different methods. Some critics read these scenes as proof that Robyn had knowledge of the unorthodoxies, but was held back by the family's dynamics. Reactions from social media were mixed. Most of the fans criticized Robyn for remaining quiet for so long, but another section of fans supported her by highlighting the hassles of living in a patriarchal society in a high-profile reality show. Memes and vignettes went viral online, contrastingly setting Robyn's serene nature against Kody's controlling dominance, sparking discussion over whether she was an intelligent accomplice or a passive abettor. The court's interest in Robyn revolved around whether she was enriched by the purported schemes or was aware of and abetting concealment. Her lawyers maintained that Robyn's role was very small and that she had been operating under duress and family obligation, presenting her as a character caught in intractable situations rather than a mastermind of deceit. However, the secret tapes established that Robyn's contribution could not be so easily written off. She attended key planning sessions, initiated some deals, and sometimes gave instructions directly to production personnel herself. Though she did not invent the schemes, the impression generated by the recordings implied an element of agency and consciousness that might determine legal decisions. For the fans, it was a sudden turn of events. Robyn, long depicted as the family peacekeeper and less adversarial presence, popped up in a more ambiguous and nuanced form, heightening the risks for both courtroom drama and public sympathy. The secret tapes not only revealed money manipulation but also shed light on personal dynamics, showing how power, loyalty, and fear converged in ways never aired. This three-dimensional perspective turned the narrative into something greater than a courtroom contest. It turned it into a psychological breakdown of the private lives of the family. This courtroom drama was tense, as the secret TLC tapes kept emerging, each segment piling onto the story of unfolding scandal. Christine, Janelle, and Mary, the wives of Kody, had been presented on the show for a long time with variable amounts of control and power. But the airing of these tapes compelled a public accounting, and their responses were monitored both in court and by audiences everywhere. One particularly dramatic exchange caught on tape involved Christine confronting Kody about a financial discrepancy. Her voice, steady but firm, cut through the air with accusations she had, until then, only intimated on camera. The production team, who had been on hand to shoot for the program, were unwitting witnesses to what legal commentators termed a raw, unedited showdown. Janelle's response was just as dramatic. During a taped hallway debate, she went through documents Kody had tried to keep secret, revealing discrepancies in budgetary figures. Where Christine was hot-headed and passionate, Janelle's method was measured, almost clinical, a contrast that was quickly identified by the viewers. Fans noted that her meticulous style challenged Kody's authority and highlighted the intelligence and foresight of his wives. Mary's response was more restrained, but no less impactful. The tapes revealed her carefully chosen words as she questioned the legitimacy of certain family expenses. Though she spoke softly, her tone carried an unmistakable edge of skepticism and accountability, leaving Kody momentarily speechless. This fleeting but eloquent instant became a viral sensation among the fans who hailed her guts. Court watchers remarked that the wives' outbursts were not just emotional overreactions, but also calculating tactics in ongoing litigation. Their lawyers emphasized that these confrontations, caught on hidden recordings, demonstrated a pattern of questioning and oversight that could influence judgments regarding consent, complicity, and financial liability. Social media erupted with clips of the wives' confrontations, often accompanied by commentary dissecting every glance, word, and gesture. Fans debated who had the upper hand, with polls showing overwhelming support for the wives over Cody. These reactions escalated the stakes of the court case, transforming it from a legal dispute into a cultural event. The tapes also uncovered the key aspect. The wives' conversations were not scripted or sensationalized for television in these instances. Legal commentators pointed out that this unplanned reality delved deeper into the court's understanding of the family's real-life dynamics, revealing how power, rebellion, and tension were exercised behind the cameras. By week's end, it was apparent that the withheld TLC tapes had changed public opinion. No longer was Cody just a patriarch on television, he was now a man under full view, confronted by wives who were claiming their agency in ways heretofore unseen. As the court hearings heated up, attention fast turned from personal clashes to the web of finances surrounding Kody Brown and his larger family. Newly released TLC tapes were not only emotionally intense, they held shocking secrets about secret accounts, peculiar transactions, and mysterious transfers. Vaughn's segment, screened during a critical hearing, caught Cody on tape in what seemed to be an open conversation with his accountant. The videotape caught him trying to explain transfers tagged as family support, that, when scrutinized, diverted large amounts out of joint funds. Legal observers who saw the tape remarked on the inconsistency between Cody's words and the books, an inconsistency that might indicate knowing concealment or mismanagement. The lawyers for the wives jumped on this proof at once. Christine called attention to a transfer of more than $200,000 that had been masqueraded as a normal expense. Janelle emphasized frequent deposits into a hidden account, how their legitimacy and timing questioned them. Mary, always meticulous, called attention to patterns of spending that defied Cody's previous testimony, attributing certain amounts to personal spending as opposed to family necessities. The response in the courtroom was tangible. Witnesses likened the shared gasp when the tapes showed a sudden $50,000 withdrawal from a joint account, days before a large family gathering. For web viewers tracking the case online, the video provided an unprecedented glimpse into the workings of money power within the family, something the show never had portrayed so clearly. Public response was swift and passionate. Twitter blew up with the use of hashtags #CodyExposed and #SisterWiveScandal. Observers pointed out that the storytelling going on was now no longer reality television drama, but one of legal consequences and moral questioning. Viewers argued over the ethics of every financial choice, analyzing Cody's behavior and comparing it to that of his wives being bold enough to find out the truth. The evidence also brought forth an astonishing layer. Cody had tried to represent some expenses as shared family gains, when in fact the tapes demonstrated that the funds catered to only a few, usually discreetly. This discovery bolstered the wives' argument, giving the court concrete evidence that instances of favoritism and mismanagement were not just speculative. At the end of the session, everyone saw that the web of finances around Kody Brown had been brought to light like never before. Hidden accounts, covert deals, and tactical transfers created a scenario of a family leader fighting to keep command, as the wives were becoming more and more the champions of openness and equity. With the explosive TLC tapes unfolding before the court, the spotlight turned to Kody Brown's legal case. Witnesses said that the video had changed the subject matter from personal soap opera to an outright financial probe, and the stakes could not be greater. Legal experts started breaking down every step, every utterance, and every transaction that had emerged. Cody's lawyer began by stressing misunderstandings and clerical mistakes, trying to play down the importance of the secret accounts. The defense asserted that Cody's transfers represented standard housekeeping, and any oversight was not deceitful but accidental. However, experts observed that sheer numbers and regularity of the undisclosed transactions eroded this line of argument. One prominent legal commentator observed, "The court now has visual and financial evidence contradicting Cody's prior claims. In terms of law, This is not merely circumstantial, it is directly attacking his credibility. Every time Cody explained or rationalized his finances, they were closely examined in the moment and shown to contain contradictions between what he said and what was recorded. The attorneys of the wives were swift to capitalize. Christine pointed out discrepancies in the account statements of Cody, demonstrating that some of the expenses that had been categorized as family events were, in fact, personal extravagances. Janelle pointed out unauthorized repeated withdrawals from accounts that were to be joint, where questions are raised about intentional deception versus neglect. Mary, with impeccable timing, matched Cody's explanations with the real bank statements, leaving the court unable to disregard the emerging trend of manipulation of finances. Public opinion was already responding to these events. Social media was filled with responses analyzing the tapes and questioning Cody's defense strategy. Fans and viewers started noticing a discrepancy between the television persona and the legal one, leading to speculation that the patriarch's grip on the family finances could have been significantly more tyrannical than before. Even the judge, who was known to be no-nonsense, looked more and more in doubt. Her examination of Cody during the session seemed to betray grave doubts over his integrity and sincerity, particularly with the tangible evidence in place. Legal observers framed her tone as sharp and incisive, an indication that the court was prepared to take Cody to task if inconsistencies continued. Cody's defense, initially cocksure, was steadily weakening beneath the onslaught of fact evidence and continuous cross-examination. When the session closed, it was clear that the tapes had profoundly shifted the course of the case. What had begun as a voyeuristic reality television spectacle had transformed into a sober consideration of financial ethics, disclosure, and family trust. The mood in the courtroom continued to become more tense and emotional as the trial went on. The publication of the secret TLC tapes had already paved the way, but subsequent to that was a series of testimonies that left everyone in the courtroom as well as the audience stunned. Christine appeared first on the stand. She was composed, but every utterance was heavy. She described moments when Cody purportedly manipulated checks to his advantage, pointing out cases where the combined resources of the family were being drained into hidden accounts. The judge heard carefully as she outlined the financial betrayal's emotional cost, creating a picture of trust broken and family relationships strained. Her voice cracked occasionally, a reminder of the human cost in numbers. Last, Janelle's testimony brought the intensity up a notch. With corroborating evidence from newly released tapes, she revealed inaccuracies in Cody's past declarations, demonstrating that he had deliberately misrepresented how funds were being used. Clips were shown in court where Cody talked about family investments, but bank statements showed personal spending a world away from what the family had planned. The courtroom gasped as every contradiction was brought into focus with surgical precision, leaving it hard for anyone to take Cody's side. Even Robyn, previously viewed as being on Cody's side, came under investigation. Certain tapes hinted at her awareness of financial choices that were kept from the other wives. Although her testimony tried to portray her behaviors as obedient passivity, the court reminded her that willful ignorance was not an acceptable defense, particularly when she was mentioned in documents and communications related to secret accounts. The judge's queries turned into pointed and relentless ones, attacking all allegations and insisting on details. "Explain the purpose of these transfers," she asked Cody. "And why were your co-wives not informed?" The questions exposed gaps in Cody's defense and highlighted the increasing credibility of the wives' testimonies. As tensions rose, the courtroom atmosphere became electric. Emotions, evidence, and unfiltered truths collided, creating moments that would be remembered long after the case concluded. Witnesses pointed out that the blending of hard fiscal data with emotional testimony was an approach that the court found especially effective. Public interest reached its peak during this period. Video clips of emotional testimonies were shared on the internet, with audiences displaying shock and disbelief at the drama that unfolded. Viewers and critics both wondered who would come out on top. But there was one emotion that prevailed. The truth beneath the show's surface was much more sinister than people could ever have envisioned. By the time the day was over, it was apparent that the tide was turning against Kody Brown. Every testimony, every clip, and every discovery eroded the ground of his defense, building a narrative in which accountability and truth were inescapable. The courtroom was tense with anticipation as the last day of the trial dawned. Weeks of dynamite testimonies, secret TLC recordings, and financial disclosures had left everyone waiting for the judge's final verdict. The air was charged with expectation, and even the people at the rear of the room could sense the solemnity of the occasion. The judge took the lead by recounting the case, retelling each bit of evidence, each witness testimony, and the incriminating tapes that had been made public. The court emphasized how Kody Brown's actions, which may be intentional or careless, had brought immense financial and psychological damage to his wives. The proof was meticulous, with not much room for uncertainty. A point at a time, the major issues of the trial were tackled. Christine's testimony established Kody's poor handling of shared resources. Janelle's proof from the TLC videos demonstrated discrepancies in Kody's declarations and clandestine financial actions. Robyn's role, though not as straight ahead, implicated her nonetheless in the underhanded transactions. The voice of the judge became stern as he delivered the verdict. It is the finding of this court that Kody Brown and Robyn Brown are guilty of financial misconduct and fraud against their co-wives. The words caused a shiver of shock and relief to run through the courtroom. Orders came swiftly. Kody and Robyn had to pay back the misappropriated funds in full. Properties and assets, including those linked to unrevealed accounts, were to be shared fairly among the wives. Additional steps were ordered to bring greater financial openness in the future. Aside from the courtroom, the response was swift and vehement. Social media exploded as videos of the ruling were posted, with fans both vindicated in the wives and incredulous at the revelation of Kody's behavior. Commentators observed that the case had irreparably altered the public's perception of the show, unveiling a reality much more intricate and disturbing than the audience had conceived. For Kody, the consequences were deep-seated. The verdict not only hit him in the pocket and in his prestige, but it also sent a powerful message regarding accountability and accountability's consequences, as well as the consequences of lies. Meanwhile, Christine, Janelle, and the other women had not only gained restitution but a public vindication of their integrity and strength. Eventually, the court ruling was a sensational end to a drama marked by suspense, betrayal, and emotional drama. The airing of the secret TLC tapes had revealed the truth, leaving spectators reeling and in one of the most dramatic turns in the history of sister wives. The tale of Kody Brown's courtroom defeat was more than a case of law. It was an exposure of secret truths, a school of transparency, and a harsh reminder that actions do have consequences even in the reality television world.